As you know, the council adopted a resolution at the last meeting to terminate the agreement we had with Anoka County for poll pads. So we did send that resolution to Anoka County, and then they did respond. So we did include a copy of their response letter in your packet tonight. And attorney can answer any questions that you might have, and I know he's talked to Anoka County about it too, and has some thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'm happy to supplement. So as you see in the response, as per the agreement would be terminated, and the city would have to respond by returning the poll pads. That would have to occur based on the notice tomorrow. However, if that occurs, what I was told was that the county would then directly provide the poll pads to the election judges within the city, which makes sense. So, because the county is charged with training election judges and the training has already occurred, this would be, and they've designated that ePoll pads are going to be used in this election. They would be providing those directly to election judges within the precincts in the city, so they'd be utilized at the election per the designations that have already occurred. And unfortunately, again, this term head elections official is not defined in statute. The term head elections official, very specifically. But if you'll note in the statute that's been discussed, it only talks about kind of the three levels of elections that could be administered separately. It's basically elections are administered by the county. When it's anything kind of above the city or school district, administered by the city, the municipality. If it's sort of a city-specific, which is why they would, if the city wanted to it had a special election that was separate from a countywide election, the city could choose how it's designated to use the poll pads. Same with the school district. So that is the sort of what would happen if tonight you could, and so by having that occur, it would be creating a different process on the back end specific to Oak Grove at sort of this late period in the election, where some election of judges have already been trained, some haven't been trained. And so the two things are, one, this is a change close to the election. Two, it would establish its different process within the city of Oak Grove. The other thing that I just want to point out is there are two sections that are important in sort of the election code. 211B076 refers to technically interference with election judge duties. And by having a separate process that is new this close to the election, I would be concerned that doing something benign while trying to direct election judges could result in miscommunication or something different, because this is separate, different, and new. I would advise sort of avoiding that type of situation. And the other one being the 201.27 and 201.275, which are the penalty sections specifically associated with the registration, the poll pads part chapter. Those are not necessarily discretionary from the city or from the county attorney's perspective. It is, if they get a report, they have to follow these steps. There's not discretion. So again, somebody could be doing something completely benign, the county attorney would be required to kind of forward that to the relevant law enforcement agency for investigation. And while I'm confident that our folks know what they're doing, having this would be a completely unique situation in Anoka County, and I'm not familiar with a different situation statewide. So it's really an issue of kind of first initial review where there's a lot of gray area. Not gray area. I would say we don't have an example to point to. I can't point you to an example in a different county or with a different city where they've gone through exactly this.
So let me get this straight. The city says we're not going to use poll pads, right? We tell the county we're not going to use them, right? They don't have a document that says, no, you're going to use them. They don't have that. Otherwise, they would have provided that to us, correct? So they have nothing that pertains to the poll pad. Their answer is to give the poll pads directly to the election judges. So outside the city, giving them to citizens to bring to the city to use the poll pads. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
What they are, well, maybe. They're direct, yes, I think, except the thing that I would differentiate is the term citizens. I mean, the folks are citizens, but they're also elections officials under the law as well. So they have a different designation than
Sure,
they're
but
trained.
isn't there a chain of custody with devices like that? I mean, we just couldn't take a tabulator and give it to a elections official and have them stored in their garage.
There is, yes. However, what this would be doing would be eliminating one chain in that custody and cutting out what the city would be doing otherwise. So again, that's creating a separate process.
What I hear you saying is that there's sort of a double jeopardy here. Is that, we make a decision to say that we're not going to use these poll pads because they don't have a document that says that we have to use the poll pads. But they're going to say, no, we have this other way that we're going to hold you to using the poll pads. So really, they're saying it never was our decision. We can never do this. We're going to tell you how it is, and that's it.
Yes, that is, yes.
Well, I totally disagree with that premise, and they will have to prove that to us. And again, I'm just one voice up here. But this is, to me, I have to choose my words. It's not right. I'll just put it that way. And it's very concerning that they can try to do this. This council, the city, has made a decision. And I think that we should stand by that decision. And the process is still going to happen the way the process has always happened. Whether it's a poll pad or it's a piece of paper, we're just taking that device out of this equation. They're still looking up the names. We still have to have the paper. They're still going to be here. Does their training talk about go to this screen on the poll pad, go to this screen on the poll pad, or does it say go to the name or verify the name as the end result?
Yeah, I'd have to defer to the city clerk or somebody who's done that training for that specific question.
Well, it's here nor there. Either way, I wouldn't have to. I'd have to know a little bit more about it. But
Yeah.
in my opinion, I say we move forward the way we're going to do it. But that's just me.
Well, I got a question too. We have an agreement with Anoka County, right? That expires in like 2 years? Yes?
Yep.
So, I'm reading Billy's memo that she put out here. Did we already vote to basically walk away from that agreement? Or is that a different agreement?
It was a different agreement. The agreement that was terminated, the resolution from last meeting was an agreement that the cities got together to purchase these devices and then includes a license provision that allows then not just the county, but also then the cities to utilize the hardware and software and store, utilize, and
Okay.
maintain.
So in 2 years, when that agreement goes by the wayside, are we gonna just automatically, are we supposed to re-up that? Or can we walk at that time?
Is there an evergreen clause built into that agreement?
The other agreement, so that one was just to buy and then be able to utilize. The other agreement, the 2022 agreement, is, I'm just pulling it up, sorry, is the actual agreement that talks about who pays for what for like the elections administration part of things. And that one, the county, if they wanted to let us out of it, could before 2020, I believe it's the end of 2025, but the city could leave it in, I think, 2026. So anyway, that's the answer to your question. You could leave this and then be responsible for those activities and costs that the county currently does that could be delegated to the city. The thing we'd have to look at, and I believe would be the case according to what the county has said to us previously, was we could run them the city could run them as it wishes to run them. But I want to cross that specific bridge when we get there, because there's a lot to running an election as well.
Okay.
The other thing that you could direct me to do as the city attorney is request a clarifying opinion from the attorney general. That's something that city's attorney can do, specifically about or whichever sort of provisions and directions there's sort of questions about, including this head elections official designation. Those they're not instantaneous, so they would take time, but that is another step separately. We could.
I got a question for you, but we'll let you go first. Could you state your name and address I assume you have some input on this.
Yes. My name's Louise Woodbury. I live at 3133 191st Avenue Northwest. I am an election judge. I've gone through the training, so that was kind of a question. The training does specify and show how to do the poll pads screen by screen. I'd have to go back and review it. I don't remember if it shows screen by screen what to do. My comment is the short time frame between your resolution and the general election, and having to rethink and redo how those elections are held in 5 weeks and 1 day from the time you're past that resolution. The November election was 5 weeks and 1 day. There is no training about the paper registers anymore. If the backup materials that election judges get have a paper register, which is blank. So if the poll pads go down, we would have to essentially re-register everybody because we have no proof that they had previously registered. And if the county is not going to provide a pre-printed register with for this election, if we don't use the poll pads, then everybody who shows up, my understanding would be if they don't provide the paper register.
Well, they have to.
What do they?
The
Yeah, they do.
paper register is supposed to be there as a backup.
It's a blank. It does not have
It doesn't have
names
the-
on it.
Well, that's interesting that it doesn't have names on it. I thought it always did.
That paper register would have to be generated.
So they give you a book that's nothing in it?
It has lines.
Hmm.
At least the last time I checked it.
You concur?
It does, that's what it has. as
There's
well.
nothing?
So it'd be handwriting and doing.
Handwriting, and everybody essentially would have to register at the polls and provide
See, that's not my understanding. I understand it by statute, they have to provide the voter roll as a
And they
backup.
do via the poll pad.
No, as a backup on paper. That is what has to be provided. It cannot be a blank piece of paper. I'm not going to disagree with you, but that would make no sense at all, in my opinion.
So just one more comment
Sure.
in that, if this is something you do want to pursue, I would, especially since their agreement is coming up in a couple of years, is maybe take a step back on this one and make that a priority to investigate and make those kinds of resolutions well in advance of the next election, so that election judges can be trained on that process ahead of time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My question I had for you was, we do nothing, or we leave it as is. They're going to come tomorrow. They're going to pick them up, or we have to bring them
No,
down
we
or
have to deliver them.
We have to
deliver them. Then on the day of the election or the night before, they're going to bring them back. They're going to give them to the head judges. Now, are they under an obligation to use those? Have they taken an oath or something like that, that if they don't use those, they can get in trouble? Or can we just, I just want to know what the ramification is obviously if I'm, depending on how, you get where I'm going. I need to know what the ramifications are all the way down the line, not just for us as a city, so.
Yeah, I can, do you mind if I just hop in?
Yeah,
really
yeah, go
quick?
for it.
Or do you mind if I hop in? The election judges have to follow the training, and they have taken an oath to follow the process in the statute. And so I would say they would be following the training that they've received, which is from the county, and the county's required to put on coordinated uniform training for election judges. And the county is also there. While there isn't a specific statute that says this is everything the county does, or this is the thing that the county does, the county is the primary. Is the primary delegee of the majority of all of these things, including related to registrations. And so that's the authority that they're using. It's looking at the whole chapters collectively and saying, these are all the things the county is delegated to do. And unfortunately, as legislative drafting sometimes goes, there appears that they could have done a better job of explicitly outlining some of these things, which is what the ACID folks are pointing at. So,
Hi, I'm Amy Watton. I live in Oak Grove. My address is 22605 Quapaw Street. And first I'll address the paper voter rolls. If they're delivering blank voter rolls, they're in violation of state statute.
Right.
So if the county's delivering blank voter rolls, they're violating the statute. Those are required to be here as a backup by Minnesota statute. So if that's done by the county, they should be sued. I mean, that's blatant violation. Second, I do have the agreement with Anoka County in my hand, and the only power that's given to the county in this agreement is that the county is given the authority to modify the quantity or the definition of the electronic equipment. They're not giving any other unilateral power, that says. You brought up statute 211B, .076, was that it? Couldn't Tom Hunt also be found in violation of that statute by doing what he's doing and superseding his authority and not allowing you guys to, terminate this agreement? And
Well, that was
move
going to be
forward?
my point. I mean, part of the problems that we're having today across this country is a bureaucratic organizations all over the country, bureaucrats that
It's not
are
elected.
fighting elected officials and doing what they want to do. The five of us up here were voted here to represent our constituents, and we're being told by bureaucrats that we can't. So that is my problem with all of this.
So the same bureaucrats put right in your agreement, it says that the county does not warrant the performance of the equipment. And it also says that it cannot warrant the data source systems will be uninterrupted or error-free, or that the data is accurate, complete, and current, or that the data defects will be corrected. And here's the key point. It also says the data system is free of harmful code. The county will not tell you that the machines, that the poll pads are not free of harmful code. They will not warranty that. So to me, that is, the fact that this was signed without that explicit warranty is startling. But I will say about returning the poll pads, it says that upon expiration or termination, that the jurisdiction must return the poll pads. So if you do not return the poll pads, you may be in violation. In my opinion, I'm not a lawyer. I just read this very thoroughly. If it's not returned, you guys can be in violation. And Tom Hunt could say, oh, you didn't return it, you violated the termination agreement. So the fact that he gave you the date, I think that you should go forward with that.
My question is too about the training of the election judges on the poll pads. Is the training about getting the information that you need in the end, or is it about the use and operation of the poll pad?
I haven't done the training yet.
You know,
So-
that was my question.
But my question is, I remember going to the primary and signing the poll pad and thinking, okay, it's asking me if I'm a citizen. It's asking me if I'm legally eligible to vote. And I scribble my name, and it totally takes away the judge's right to verify a signature. Nobody writes same electronically as they do in person, right? So we don't have IDs, we don't have a license, we don't have an address. So the last thing that we have is verification of your signature, and they just took that away from the judges. So there's no way to verify that someone is who they say. They're just signing on a piece of electronic equipment that they are who they say and that they're legally eligible to vote. I'm not going to get into code and the tracking because that's out of my expertise. But the way I read the statute that Tom quoted in the letter to you guys is the county, municipality, or school district may use rosters, et cetera, et cetera. So that's if. So if you guys choose to use the rosters, then the head election judge can designate, right? You guys have decided not to use the electronic rosters. Therefore, the head election judge in Anoka County cannot designate that you have to use them. And the statute is pretty clear that it says may use, and Tom Hunt replaces the word may with will. So
I saw shall in here somewhere too, and that,
each precinct in Oak Grove will continue to use electronic rosters. Statute says may. So who gave Tom Hunt the authority, the statutory authority, to be the head election official and tell people that they have to do something that statute says may do?
well, this is why we should have attorneys reading the statute that make sure that it doesn't say will when it should say may. And that's the ammunition that we need to say, we're still going to do what we're going to do. Shall, may, will, those are very important words. They're very small,
And how-
but they really talk about the intent of the sentence that you're using.
And if Oak Grove pays the judges, they're employees of Oak Grove, how does the county then say, we're going to circumvent you and go to your employees and your citizens and tell them what they have to do? And I am not an attorney, so I'm a reasonable person, and I read this a certain way. A reasonable person would say that the county, municipality, or school district has the right to do this, not the county. So they're totally going, right, a reasonable person clause, anyone that just reads this, layman's terms, should be able to interpret this. And everyone I've showed this to that's not an attorney interprets it the same way. So whenever it's broad and sweeping, it usually goes by what would a normal person think. And a normal person would think that you guys have the authority to make the decisions, not Tom Hunt. I've looked over and over, where in statute is Tom Hunt the elections official, or the head election? Why isn't the city election person not the head person? Why is it Tom Hunt? Can anyone tell? Do you know why it's Tom Hunt?
Because the county has been delegated the authority to run these elections throughout chapters, almost the entirety of chapters, the 200s.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And if you read this provision in whole, it does say head elections official may designate that electronic rosters would be used. You have to read everything holistically. And if you read them together, I think a reasonable person could also interpret this to say that the head elections official, and for federal, state, countywide elections, the person, I don't know of an example where the municipality would be considered the head elections official for an election that involves the president of the United States or the governor.
But the statute doesn't delineate elections. It just says county, municipality, or school district. So why doesn't it not state that the county attorney or the county election person is the head?
I wish they would have done that.
So I think my viewpoint is the county, municipality, or school district, whoever they designate, you guys are the municipality, you guys get to designate. There's also section 201.221, something about municipalities agreeing to these things. So I guess that's about all I think that's about all I had to say. But yeah.
So I guess we have two options. We can make a motion to rescind our motion to do what we did, or we send them back tomorrow. That's what's on the table right now.
Oh, I had one more note. I'm sorry. Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
So in the equipment license, the very, no, like section 2 of your agreement, it says that it's limited and revocable. So if it wasn't revocable, why would they put that language in there? And it says it's non-exclusive. So there, I mean, it's, the language in the agreement is super clear that you guys can terminate. And now Tom Hunt is saying that you can't terminate.
Yeah.
And then you did bring up the joint powers agreement too earlier, which is separate. But the way I read that is you can cancel it after a certain date, but then you can't actually, it can't be enacted until December 31st of 2026. So even if you cancel it in 2025, you still have to use the tabulators in 2026 for the November elections. So that's all I have.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, Paul. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
I don't want to steal your thunder, sir, but I'm going to just jump in here and say I'd like to make a motion to return the poll pads tomorrow and get it done. Motion's on the table.
So is there a second?
I'm not going to second it because I'm going to vote against it because I don't know what ramifications may be there, and I think we need to really know where we stand with this whole thing. I think we're really looking at this really late in the year, 3 weeks before an election. I mean, and I know we started earlier, but I mean, this is something that's why I brought up 2 years from now when this agreement's up. I mean, we should start looking at that 2 years ahead of time. So,
I think
I'm not going to second the motion.
If we don't push, nothing's going to happen. We're going to be in the same spot every year.
Well,
Let them prove their case, because to me, they're not.
okay. Well, I don't want to take that stand and have an election screwed up 3 weeks from now.
It's looking at a name on a piece of paper and verifying that who they are.
Yeah. And I don't even know whether the names are on them, the papers. We got one person saying it is and one person saying it ain't.
And by statute, they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know?
So they are not
They
following.
Right.
have to provide it.
They're
Right.
not following what they're supposed
Yeah.
to do by statute.
Yeah,
If
and I don't
I
know. Maybe they are. You know, it's
If I may,
Yes.
I'm Kurt Hayden, 3016 191st Avenue Northwest. I've been an election judge for quite a few years. I worked with the paper rosters, so I know how they work. The poll pads have been a huge time saver and work saver. They make for easier access, get people in, get through the lines, get out again without the headaches. I don't know if any of you remember the paper rosters. We had people backed up in A through Z or A through L and M through O and whatever. You might have one line with one or two people. You might have another line with 15 waiting to vote, waiting to get registered. So there's an issue there. There's also an issue with new registrations because the poll pads, you can register a new person, somebody who's never voted before, on that poll pad. So they can just go through the line just like everybody else. If you get rid of the poll pads, go back to the paper rosters again, you're going to have to give me at least 2 more judges because I'm going to have another table set up where I can have new registrations, and they're gonna have to fill out those paper registrations like they used to do back in the day. So it goes beyond just whether or not we have the electronic poll pads. It brings in another whole set of circumstances. So, if you're gonna send the poll pads back, you're gonna have to get us some more election judges, because we're gonna have to be able to manage the extra people and the extra work that we're gonna have to do to get the job done. That's all I've got to say at this time.
Thanks for your
Thank you.
input.
Thank you.
My motion still stands.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, a second.
All right. Any further discussion? If we return them, I have further discussion. If we return it, does that give us more time? I mean, we've done nothing wrong. We've done what we said we were going to do. We return them. If we can't figure out what's what and who's who and blah, 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 in 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now, they're just going to bring them back and we're going to use them anyways, because we're going to be pretty much forced to use them.
Well, it sounds like that's what their intent is anyway, is to go
Right.
around what we're saying anyway.
Right. But if we send them back, at least
Expand.
there's time there to dig a little bit deeper, whereas if we just rescind it, we're done for this year, I would say.
I'm not I think if you were to rescind, and I spoke to the assistant county attorney, they would essentially, they'd waive their right to have it terminated after the 7 days, so it would just remain in place. And nothing would change. If you leave the situation as it is, that resolution in place, then yes, you'd have to return them tomorrow. My understanding is this was based on a conversation between two people who do not actually do this hand, the two attorneys, but my understanding was there's some type of recalibration that would need to occur based on who's storing it and who's sending it places. So this would be something that would have to be done, which I believe is why they had the 7 day, because there's not a specific return window in the 2018 agreement. So then they provided the 7 days because they need it back in time to be able to do something with them prior to then having to drive them back out to the precincts here in Oak Grove for use at the election.
And if we send them back, is there more training that had to be completed that hasn't been completed on them?
Well, you would have to get trained on the paper.
And it's, well,
No, I'm just
Would
saying they
train-
bring them back in 3 weeks from now.
Well,
Is everybody trained to use them already and knows how to use them?
if we bring them back, I'm losing control of the testing and all of that I've done for all the other machines. We're gonna rely on the county for that if I have to bring them back. Right now, I'm set to take all 13 of those poll pads and give them updates, make sure the batteries full, and that the voter registrations are all up to date. That won't be something that I'll be able to do if I have to take them back. And then they'll just be delivered to them, and I won't have any idea of what has happened with them or.
yeah, and on election day, I think one of the things that also had to be worked out is, my understanding of the general process is, if an election judge has a question about a poll pad, they would work through the election judges, get to the head precinct.
The head judge.
The head judge,
And then-
who then, I'll let you, if you wouldn't mind.
So if they have a question on a poll pad, they go to the head judge. If the head judge cannot answer it, they come to me and I call the county, and they assist me in how to work through it. So it would be troublesome to not have them in advance.
And then we'd have a resolution saying, directing not to use them, but then the clerk would be in a position that she might have to respond to questions based on the sort of processes that are in place on how this works, or we've figured out a way to, there's a way to circumvent the clerk in those in the asking of those questions. And so these are the areas where, because of the strict enforcement of laws related to election, that I generally wouldn't advise sort of creating new processes that are different than everything else, especially in an area where we don't know, because there's been no example of this, sort of the bleeding edge of something like this, where it could potentially be putting sort of staff in a position where they're acting completely normally, but potentially are running afoul of, if they're following the direction of the resolution or the trainings that have been given by the county and telling election judges what to do on the day of the election, it just gets messy. It could get messy, and we don't have an example of this to look at.
I'm just going to speak frank. The problem we have is if we go 2-2 with this, it's a draw.
It's not a draw, it's a fail.
It's a fail. If we try to say, okay, let's rescind, it probably will be a 2-2. Now what do we do?
Yeah, you would be in the situation where you have to return them tomorrow.
Where we would.
You return them
Yeah.
because you wouldn't have rescinded the resolution from the previous meeting.
Can we go home and come back? I don't know.
So, Paul, if you're concerned with this, and since you're the guy that's sort of on the hot seat here, you can finish the vote on this motion, one way or the other. And if you would like to make a motion, you can certainly do that. Or someone else can.
Yeah.
That's the way I would handle it.
Could sure use that other guy right now. Person.
I'm sure he's watching.
All right,
And
so-
smiling.
So do I need to state my name again if I want to talk?
I don't know if it's going to change anything right now.
Oh, no, I just wanted to say one comment. We had asked, so 21 different cities have this agreement, and most of them do not have them anywhere in their public records or their minutes or in any of their city council meetings. And we've been trying to get these agreements from Tom Hunt for 3 to 4 weeks, and he did not give them to us. So had he given them to us when we requested them, there would have been plenty of time to train election judges properly on how to use the paper poll pads. But he stalled and stalled and stalled and stalled. And now that he finally produced all 21 just this week, right after judge training is finished, he sends a letter saying you have to use them.
Well, that was the game plan.
That was always
That's
the
what
game
they
plan.
do.
So Tom Hunt is circumventing you guys. He's circumventing me as a citizen of Oak Grove. And I will not be voting for anyone in this council that does not support the citizens of this city who believe that this type of thing should happen. No one in Oak Grove thinks that the county should run the city of Oak Grove. Nobody. Maybe a couple people, but I will tell everyone who votes no on this resolution when I'm door knocking this week in Oak Grove. And I'm door knocking 2 to 3 nights a week. I will say these are the city council members that voted no to protect your vote. And if it's you two, I'll tell people not to vote for you two. I'm sorry, but that's where I stand. Tom Hunt did this deliberately, it was intentionally, and it's malfeasance in my opinion. He should be the one being taken to court, not you guys, not you. It should be Tom Hunt. He's thwarting your authority as the city council, and he's overstepping me as a citizen. And it's ridiculous and it's disgusting, and this reminds me of COVID, when they told us what we could do, right? This is an illegal mandate from Tom Hunt telling you guys, if you don't toe the line, he's gonna sue you. And you guys are scared of Tom Hunt. And that's insane. We don't vote for people in Oak Grove that are afraid of Tom Hunt. We vote for people in Oak Grove that stand up for liberty and for us. And I'm looking at you because you're on the fence
Yeah.
here. Like, I want you to stand up for liberty. I don't want you to stand up for Tom Hunt.
I should be clear.
Right.
Tom, the Anoka County elections official.
Thank you. For your
Sorry.
And I
you
was-
done? I'm sorry.
I was going to say one more thing too. If there's huge blowback and they say, oh, we're going to enact statute 211B.076, there's a loophole. You guys can choose to use the paper rosters that have to be printed by the state statute, and they're released when they close the SVRS system. They print the paper rosters just like the update the poll books. It's done at the same time. So there's no updates to the poll books after the rosters are done. So if they threaten you with legal action, and I don't recommend this, I don't want you to do this, but you could always use one poll pad for new registration only, and then you could use paper for all prior registrations. I don't want that, but I'm saying if they come back and threaten to sue, people are like, oh my gosh, we're so afraid of suing. After you return them and there's a fight then, that could be like a get out of jail free card if you're afraid of Tom Hunt, which I don't think you should be.
Again, thank you for your.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
A couple of just clarifying points. 211B076 is about intimidation and performance of the election judges. So that's trying to, so that's not necessarily that the elections official would be filing any type of case. This is any person can report interference with an election judge. And the prosecuting authority under 201, which is the registration section, is the county attorney. But the county attorney takes reports from anybody, sends it to then the law enforcement agency that's in charge of investigating those alleged crimes or violations. And the third thing, I think we all know this, but the use of electronic rosters is something that is designated and then told to the Secretary of State 90 days before an election is to occur. And the statute says that then that designation applies until at all future elections until rescinded. So I don't even know if there'd be the ability for the county to at this point say, we're not using electronic rosters, because we already told the Secretary of State 90 days before the election that they were going to be used. So just a couple of sort of the statutory language points as well.
But we haven't been openly threatened or anything by sending these back tomorrow. They haven't said, well, we're going to sue you, we're going to do this or that or the other. I mean, all they've said is, you've requested it, you have 7 days for us to adhere to what we did. They need to go back.
Yep.
We've got 2 and 2 up here, so at the end of the day, if we don't come to any conclusion, they're going back. So it might be easier just to send them back and use the next 3-4 weeks to figure out if there's any additional moves. Because that's what's going to happen anyways. I'm just
Yep.
pointing out the obvious.
You're not convincing me. I'm here to provide
Yeah,
genuine
no.
legal advice.
But at this point in time, they haven't said anything other than, well, send them back. So we voted on this to
But we
send them
haven't
back.
voted.
Nope. We voted to send them back. They've sent the thing and said, send them back. And that's what we're doing right now. Now, of course, they said they're going to bring them back, but, all right. So,
I'm sorry. Can I speak again, please?
sure.
Okay. So you send them back. Anoka brings them to the precinct and hands them to the judges on election day. As a head judge, what do? Do I use the poll pads or do I use paper rosters? Is that my decision? And can I be prosecuted for making the wrong decision?
That was the question I had.
Yeah, I would not advise answering that question specifically on sort of the prosecution side of things. I think the opportunity that the interim mayor is proselytizing about is, sorry, it's the only word I could think of, is determining specifically that in the coming weeks, so that there's no question, there's, if possible, clear direction, so there are no questions or gray areas or anything where somebody would be put in a position where they have to make some discretionary decision, which may not exist, and potentially put themselves in jeopardy.
Yeah, and we have 3 weeks to figure that out.
We don't want anything ill to happen with election judges. Election judges do a great job. This is not about the election judges. This is about the process. And, we are all for the election judges. My wife is an elected judge, so I don't want to put her in jeopardy either. So this is about the process. Love you guys, love what you do, appreciate the service, all of that. This is about the process, and we're going to get through it. So with that, Paul?
Did you have anything to add? You were shaking your head.
I do.
Then we're gonna.
I have a real big concern that I'm gonna start losing election judges. I've got full precincts right now, and if this decision moves forward, I'm really afraid that
I can comment to that. I know many people that have raised their hand to be election judges, and they never get contacted. Or they've told, we've got enough. So I don't know what that is. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. It's like going into business. You're going to have employees come and go. It happens. So don't worry about that. We'll get election judges.
I think one issue, though, is that election judges had to be appointed by, I think there was a date a week or two ago. So I don't know that we can add more election judges.
No, I'm not talking about for this
Let's
election.
talk about for this election.
That's what,
I wouldn't think that, I don't know about that, but they would leave, they would leave just because they have to use a piece of paper instead of a poll book?
It's
Oh.
gonna make for a longer day for everybody.
I'll agree to disagree. I'll agree to disagree. I mean, we're talking about Oak Grove. This isn't Minneapolis. This isn't
Yeah,
Bloomington.
Yeah,
So,
it's a smaller city.
yeah, I'll reserve any more comments before I get myself in trouble. All right, Paul, you're the man.
All the mates. All right, so there's a motion on the floor by John West to send the polling pads back. There's a second by Bray Johnson to send the polling pads back. I think they're going back regardless, so. So, all in favor?
Aye?
I
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
It's 3-1.